Greetings from London. This is Maryum, Sharif, and welcome to the Star Moguls podcast. We've been away for about a month because of Ramadan. So Eid Mubarak to all of those who are celebrating. Hope they had a blessed time. I'm always talking about health and have generational wealth and health together. And when we have both things combined, it just actually accelerates your quality of life. So my next guest, I heard a couple of months ago, actually. And when I heard the scientific point of view, I was totally convinced. Absolutely honored to invite my next guest. He has 25 years of experience in his field of fitness, health, and high performance. Academic researcher, really trained people from national and regional level of football, strength and conditioning, PhD. But if you want to run a marathon, if you want to climb Everest, if you want to swim or row the Atlantic Ocean, this is the person for you. I'm honored and delighted to invite my guest, Dr. Colin Robertson.
Thank you. What an introduction. Thank you very much. I like the sound of that guy.
Absolutely. Really impressed by your talk, Dr. Colin. A couple of months ago, I was so intrigued and absolutely delighted that you could join us and really change our perceptions about health and how we really need to have quality. I always talk about quality relationships and quality conversations, but I think we really need to start the conversation about health again, and especially through this pandemic. We've just finished the month of fasting. I'm South Asian, have our cultural palate is very exciting, very spicy, very fattening. Do you believe what we eat is what we are?
100%. 100%. I think if you look at our cultural diversity over the past 5, 6, 7,000 years, how we've evolved with regards to our civilization, our social integration. Food has been the center of it. Food has been the meeting point. Food, within various cultures plays different types of roles, whether or not it's down to fasting periods, whether it's down to feasting occasions, and even cultural and religious and social ideas about not only flavor, but what's appropriate to eat. There's a saying that you are what you eat, and I say, as a scientist, I say you are what you absorb, which is far more important in the modern day. But it's true. Our history, our lineage is tied directly to our nutrition, how we've behaved from a food point of view.
Culturally, we can't, our diet, everybody that I know from South Asian, the elder generation, they have diabetes, they have high blood pressure, and my recollection is somebody in their 70s or 80s would have cancer, or they would be quite old or aged, and then they would then, die through natural causes at a very late age. Now we see, people early 40s, even late 30s, having cancer, having heart attacks. What is the main thing that we can change in our diet then?
Have a diet that's based on ingredients and not products. That literally is, that's, when you spend more time in the preparation of your own food from ingredients. So when you go into those fruits, vegetables, those sources of meat, fish, whatever it is, those herbs, if you're going direct and you're making it to the plate, I promise you the difference between your health risk is reduced by approximately 80%.
Right. So cut out processed food completely, and have home cooked food as we had. Like, is that why our mother's food is so nutritious and so kind of soulful? Because it's homemade.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth in that. If we look at the industrialization of food, which really in the Western industrialized nations commences around about 1948, but really it was starting to creep in just before that, and then it became it's been a storm since the 60s, and wherever you see the industrialization of a country in terms of how it eats. So you see the introduction of certain types of fast food outlets, and you see an increase in the availability of processed foods, then it's only time you can start to track the health consequences of that, and they all tally up and they all marry up. So we do know that the more time that spent cooking, and that's what our parents and our grandparents did. And it's interesting because sometimes they didn't have the same amount of food. They didn't have the same food quality in some areas. That's up for debate. And still, things that, as you quite rightly pointed out, conditions that we call conditions of old age, were truly that. What we're seeing now is that conditions of old age are happening to people younger and younger every decade that goes by. So we're, to a very modest extent, people get carried away with this, we're increasing lifespan, but our health span is shrinking. So people are sicker sooner. And for me personally, not representing anyone other than myself now, I am convinced through research, through observation, experience, and study that the biggest, the key driver of that is our dietary behavior. It really is. Yeah.
So, last year we saw COVID and the whole complete change in dynamics of how we even eat. And I think being more aware of our diet. Regarding the pandemic, do you think that the world has kind of woken up to the fact that our health is absolutely paramount and we should not, not only quality of life, but can we reduce our aging with it as well? From a woman, women want to know this question, but can food firstly fight off or diminish disease, and do they have properties that can be anti-aging in the such?
First of all, I agree. I think that the pandemic sent a shock around the world, and people had that moment of going, oh, wow, I should be taking my health more seriously, because there was a big global health scare and it was affecting everybody, and it seemed to be indiscriminate. I agree. What concerns me at the moment is now that, from a global point of view, we're 14, 15 months into it, people are kind of a bit used to it now. So that shock has wore off a little bit. So
do you think we've gone back to our habits then that we had?
The latest data would say that, yeah, people are going back to how they were. Although, also a recent study that was conducted by UK Active said that there was still a really increased appetite for health. So for better food choices and for exercise amongst the general population. So that when asked, they were saying they do want to know how to do things better. It hasn't, the behavior has changed, has gone back to what it was, but there still seems to be an interest. People are still going, okay, what could I do and do more? I think what people don't want is the experience they've had beforehand, which can be quite negative, particularly the fitness industry. So I think people are looking for something that is aligned to something that's reasonable and something that's going to make a difference to them that matters. The next part of that with regards to diet and disease, going right back, I've still got the book on my shelf over there, going right back to a young child. And when I first switched onto this, I was 14 years old. That was the eureka moment. That was the epiphany, was realizing back then as a young teenager, all this sickness, disease, how people feel, this is hugely influenced by how they eat.
Did you see somebody around in your family or within your environment that you made up this observation at a young age? Or
it was more kind of, really there was two things. I was really active. I played a lot of rugby, sport, martial arts. I was out cycling every day. I was a child of the 70s and 80s. You didn't stay in the house unless someone had told you off and you had to stay in your room. Then you spent your time trying to figure out how to get out. We were all escapologists back in the 70s and 80s. And despite that, always carried a little bit of weight and, would get any kind of cold. And I realized this when I was around about 12, 13, 14. And then actually my older sister, I'm from an Irish family, so there was 7 children. My older sister passed me a book and said, have a read of that, because I've always been an avid reader.
Right.
And I remember that was the moment. And, we were a very typical working class family. So my mum, she was from Dublin, and she would make, we'd always have a Sunday meal together. But through the week, we couldn't have been any more 80s. So it was typically things out of the freezer, out of the packet. If it was the weekend and you wanted a snack, you went and got a pot noodle or some rubbish. So I started to make different choices, and I started to say, well, I'm not going to eat that. And, I want to have porridge for breakfast. I don't want to have Weetabix and these kind of things.
Yeah.
And I started to see positive change after positive change in how I felt. And really over the course of 2 or 3 years, everything I did was the same. The only difference was these, at the time, really quite subtle changes to the diet, and how I felt and how I was transformed. So that was just as a young person. What I see now through study and through being professionally involved in this across the board is that diet is directly related to wellness. It's directly related to disease. We know that. You've only got to go and look at the World Health Organization website, and you can see all these consensus statements from collaborations of research across the world. As I said to you a moment ago, we know that if you spend more time on ingredients than products, you lower your risk by up to 80% of common diseases and illnesses. When we look at weight management, when we look at factors regarding type 2 diabetes, I'm a part of the city's Changing Diabetes campaign, which is a global strategy. Again, we reverse. So people who are pre-diabetic and who probably within the first 9 to 12 months of being diagnosed as type 2 diabetic, we know that we can consistently reverse that, take them off medication, make them no longer defined as diabetic purely by bringing about dietary changes and getting them to do some physical activity, not even exercise.
Yeah.
So the food is at the heart of that. Now, your last part, which is with regards to aging, what we live in is a world of premature aging. So when you age at the right rate, especially given where we're at from a kind of, scientifically and medically derived world that we're at now, we don't endure the arduous of being exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
Most of us don't have the kind of jobs that really grind us down anymore. Most of us. So when you eliminate that, all you've got left really that is advancing the aging process are poor food choices, poor alcohol behavior, and smoking, vaping. These are all things that are known to advance the aging process. Exercise, is powerful when it comes to countering the aging process. Good nutrition. At the heart of good nutrition, we see nutrient availability. We see increased antioxidants. We see increased flavonols. We see that kind of increased phytonutrient content of food. Once we've got sufficient amounts of the omega-3s in there, well, we know that at a cellular level, the cell is not only intact, but is turning over at a better, more sustainably healthy rate. And all of that manifests in your skin. So, ultimately aging is down to the quality of your skin, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, like you said, like on a cellular level.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to touch back on the movement and exercise. For the last month or 2 months, I've had some problem with my heel, and I'm like the Forrest Gump of walking. I absolutely love it. I have to go for a walk every day. Mentally, it helps me. It really clears my head, and I just love walking. Not on a treadmill, but outside. Good. And is movement or exercise equally as important, or would you say nutrition is still is the most important?
You can't out-train a bad diet.
Right.
But they both, I mean, to me, it's not either or. They're both so powerful in regards to what they do. You are designed to move. You are a migratory species. That's how we've got where we are. Everything about the human body functions better on the move. We heal better on the move. When we walk and we put more stress through the system, that has benefits to our bone mineral density, has benefits to our musculoskeletal system. So, we're stronger, we're more resilient through movement. And actually, when people tell me they walk a lot, that's music to my ears. That's what I want people to do. Yeah. Walking is the art of what being human is all about. And then exercise goes on, it adds to that. But we want to be walking as much as we can every single day. But the power of movement, the power of exercise is you can't overstate it. It literally defines who and what you are. And particularly if you look at your physical independence as you age, that is directly associated with how much physical activity and exercise you've done across your life. And to me, a part of the joy of the world is being able to physically engage in it. It's to be able to walk, through a forest, up a hill, through a city, these incredible places that stimulate the senses. We heal in nature. We should spend more time in it. Walk across a park, across a field, physically engage in the world, because it's a part of the joy of living. And when people are in these boxes all the time and doing nothing, you're not being human, and that comes at a health cost.
We'll have to incorporate the fun element, and what is good for your soul, and what aligns with your heart, like to do movement and exercise. And I've never been one for stressing the body. Should we be doing that? Like, as an entrepreneur, we go from burnout, and then we want a balance in our life. We're just struggling with, I think athletes and entrepreneurs are kind of the same. We have a goal, we have a focus, we're always on the go doing something, but we collapse, or we have extreme pain, or we're in the hospital, and that's when we stop. So when do we stress our bodies, and when should we kind of enjoy the exercise? Should we put such demand on our bodies?
Most of it shouldn't be. What's always interesting is whenever I've been
that's music to my ears.
Yeah, most of it should be what you just enjoy. I tell people I run and manage a gym up on the Wirral. We have done for over 10 years. I've worked in the fitness space my entire life.
Yes.
And
but you really enjoyed running, because I saw your TED talk yesterday, and where you said that your brother could just run for an hour or hours, and you were like, you just didn't get into it. So how did you make that change of getting into running?
Well, I just really, really wanted to. So my brother was like a really good all-round, but he's one of those annoying people. He was captain of the cricket team at school, captain of the football team. He was cross-country runner. He's one of those people who's really good at all sport, and was the first person I knew, as I said in that talk, that really made running a part of his fitness routine. And I was a rugby player, so the furthest I would run would be 20 yards. But I'd do that 50 times. So to me, the idea of just running, so I wanted to be able to do it, because I found it really kind of, there was always almost this, I like this romantic idea that, and I still do now, I've just been out for a run this afternoon. I like this idea that you can carry yourself. There's a real efficiency, human biomechanical efficiency to running. And I love running through an environment because you engage with it again differently. The senses are heightened, your breathing rate is increased, your heart rate is, everything's alert, and you're really in tune with the planet. And so I wanted to be able to do it. But
is it like you could have absorbed the energy from your environment, so as
absolutely.
such, from your kind of natural sources?
Absolutely. If I'm tired, I go for a run. So if I feel tired, I go, right, let's get your shoes on and go for a run. And then you feel, it feeds you. But even, as someone I've trained people who've been on the podium in the World Ironman Championships. I've trained people who've done distance running at Olympics. And this is what I was going to say. What people find like catches them out or catches them by surprise is that they'll come and do a day, work experience in a high performance, and they'll see how we train the athletes, and they'll go, it looked really easy. Yeah. Most of what we do is
right.
But when we train hard, the difference is that these elite athletes, they make up less than 0.1% of the global population. When they train hard, they train at a level the rest of us can't even get close to. Right. And we train hard, depending on where you're at in the cycle and everything, really hard, that pushes them outside their comfort zone. Probably for every 20 sessions they probably do one that's a really tough session. The rest of it is about, consolidation, about working on different aspects of their fitness. And that's for the elites. Now, for us, the non-elites, we should take the idea of that and we should make it work for us. So I'd say 80 to 90% of what you do, you should be able to enjoy it. You should be able to have a conversation. You should feel that you're in control. And we call this moderate intensity. And you should just be in the moment and enjoying the experience.
Yes.
And then once in a while, maybe once a fortnight, do a session that makes you a bit uncomfortable. So if it's a run, let's say you normally run and you I don't know, let's say you run normally at 10 minutes a mile pace. You normally go for 2 or 3 miles. Well, then once in a while, try and run for 8 minutes a mile. Really, really push. And you might have to stop to catch your breath and go again. If you do a session like that once in a while, you can get really good benefit and feedback. But what we see, as you mentioned earlier, too many people buy into nonsense and they'll say no pain, no gain. And I always say to people, the phrase I like is no pain. That sounds good to me. That's my motto.
Because why would you want to do something that is painful? Because that was a deterrent, isn't it? Why you want to go into a place where you have to get pain? That doesn't make sense.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That stuff, it's got its place depending on what you're there for the rest of it. But for the average person, if we're looking at lifelong participation, health and fitness, because they do diverge, they do go separately if you go too far down the road of fitness. If you want to be healthy and well and engaging and have that sense of personal fitness, then it should be at the level that you're in control and you feel like you're enjoying it as you're doing it. And I often say to people, if you're going to take up running, rather than look at Mo Farah or Usain Bolt or any of these, Paula Radcliffe, rather than look at any of these people, go and watch the episode of Friends where Rachel goes for a run around Central Park with Phoebe.
Oh, okay.
You can find it on YouTube. Run like Phoebe. Run like Phoebe. Wave your arms. Have a laugh. Just go crazy. Enjoy being in the park, because you're going to get more from that. Life is sadly too short. You're going to get more from that. You're going to enjoy it. And you're running and your heart rate's up and your breathing's up and you're moving about. You don't need to pretend to be an elite runner. And that, I understand people want to do park runs and they want to do, they might want to do their local 10K or half marathon. That's great. I applaud all of that. But still, 80% of what you do should be really, really comfortable. And then once in a while, do a little bit of a tougher session.
Yes, and that's why I say that, the best cardio is shopping.
Yeah.
No, not men agree. So, last year, as you talked about, going back to the pandemic, I suffered. I wasn't tested, but I had really, for about 4 months of really bad pain and breathing problems, and so really severe COVID symptoms. And then I'm one for really improving my diet, so I cut out dairy, and I think you have to do a self-analysis and do a reset, like every couple of months, or as accordingly to life. If life changes, then you must change also, and be adaptable. So I cut a few things out, but I was on the search for. So I love fish. I don't eat much red meat, but I do love my fish, and I love salmon. And so I was on this kind of my journey of the worst thing that I have to take is those kind of omega tablets, those fish tablets, like that are like horse tablets, and they're so massive. And I was like, just like hated taking them. But I know as a woman and somebody who's in fashion and beauty that, omega is so good for our kind of our inner styling, for our skin, for our health, But I've watched this documentary. I'm not sure if you've watched it, Dr. Colin. Seaspiracy. Have you watched it? So,
Have you?
Yeah, I was watching that and I thought, well, if the fish are dirty fish and not even clean fish, because they're obviously polluted by the sea, then, and if the main ingredient is algae of omega, and that's plant-based, then are we looking to all go kind of on a plant diet or on that road? Should we kind of look at that option as a more healthier option or not?
It's interesting. It is interesting. And I have these kind of discussions and debates in other forums as well. And I'm glad you brought this up. I mean, the Seaspiracy is an interesting program, but it's designed for TV and it's designed to be sensational. But it has drawn attention to some really vital and relevant matters, which I applaud. With regards to our position as Zinzino, it made no difference to us because we're one of the very few people who operate in the space that we're in who are aligned to Friends of the Sea. So everything that program was trying to tell people they should do versus what they were showing is exactly what we do. So ours is only sustainable fishing. We don't engage in any of that. And the reason why we have to create a fish oil from the fish that we use is to get rid of those heavy metals. So that's the whole process of eliminating that. So that for want of a better term, the fish is clean and omega is clean. And then obviously in our instance, that's then bound with the polyphenol, which is what gives it its unique formulation and also what makes it the only one that's actually effective. Now, when we look at the algae version, and I'm a big fan of this, and we are looking at this more and more closely prior to the Seaspiracy documentary, that's by the by, but with regards to factors, around sustainability and those kind of areas. Well, we already, as you're probably aware, we already provide a vegan option. So we have the vegan.
And I actually like that flavor much better, Dr. Colin. I like the lemon flavor. I think that's lovely.
I prefer the vegan one personally. I'm not a vegan or a vegetarian, but I prefer the vegan balance oil.
I'm just going to remind everybody quickly that you are part of Zinzino, scientific research specialist. That you the point we kind of completely missed that because we were talking about omega. But describe it. How did you get involved with Zinzino?
I mean, to me,
because an academic researcher, when it comes to things like multivitamins and something like protein shakes, and the whole fitness industry has kind of made it quite, I don't know, it's not as credible, I would say, in that industry. So when you look at things like that, why would an academic, a researcher, want to be involved in Zinzino?
Because as an academic, I'm interested in solutions, and I've always classed myself as an academic practitioner. So whilst I've always been involved in generating the research and being really active in that, either creating the research or analyzing the research and making that available to other people, I often describe myself as a knowledge broker. Really, I'm interested in solutions.
That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, knowledge broker.
But I'm interested in solutions, not just pie in the sky facts and information that just sits on shelves getting dusty. I mean, the biggest question that guides research, good research, is so what? So we're going to do this. So what? What will be different? What will be better? And sadly, I'd say there's far too much research that's done that is, when you say so what, they go, well, it's interesting. That's not enough to me. Not enough to me that it just perpetuate someone's career, that they just research things. To me, the outcome has to make a difference. And given where the world is at, and my focus, the lens I look at the world through, which is very much around centers on health, I want to know stuff that's going to make the situation better. So I worked a lot of time as an academic practitioner. So I was either the strength and conditioning coach, the nutritionist. I'm a registered nutritionist with the British Dietetics Association. I was either the exercise physiologist, so measuring all those kind of physiological parameters around performance. I'm an environmental physiologist. So again, if you go into a part of the world that's going to try and kill you, like the top of Everest, you get someone like me involved to keep you alive. So I find solutions. How do I keep you alive? How do I make you fitter, faster, stronger? How do I increase your endurance? And when it came to nutrition, whether I was working with a rugby team or somebody who was recovering from cancer, I'm always looking at what optimizes your health and wellness. How can I make you in the most robust health state that you can be in? And I was working on a project, an epigenetics project, research project. And epigenetics is just whereby we look at how our gene expression changes when we consume different types of food. So some do that really positively, blueberries, spinach, watercress. So these are really powerful epigenetic foods. And some things are very negative. So alcohol, smoking, they have a negative epigenetic effect. Trans fats have a really negative epigenetic influence. And I was doing an epigenetics project on the omega-3s because we know when you look across the research, we know just how important the EPA is, the DHA, with regards to our cellular balance. At the end of the day, we're just a collection of billions of cells. That's what we are. That's what we're made of. If you're not right at a cellular level, you can't be right at a gross architectural level. You might look okay, but like building a house on sand, the foundations aren't there. At some point, it's going to collapse. And our diet over the past 80, 90 years, particularly in Western industrialized nations, so all across Europe, the UK, America, Australia, all these areas, Japan, key cities of China, has changed, and we consume far less of the foods that contain those polyunsaturated fatty acids, those essential fats, and our health has come at the cost of that. So I was working on a project on this, which is part of a big national health project, and we were looking at it, saying, how can we get people to have more? And a friend of mine rung me up out the blue and literally said to me, have you heard of a company called Zinzino? And what do you know about omega-3s? And I laughed and I said, I've never heard of Zinzino, but I know, I'm comfortable talking about the omega-3s. What is it you need to know? And he'd been advised to take this product called balance oil, which I'd never heard of. But I knew about fish oil. And I was about to say, fish oil doesn't work. I wish it did. I wish fish capsules, I wish fish oil worked, because then that would be our solution. We could fix this, but it doesn't. And all the research will tell you that it doesn't work. Very low efficacy. But he said, will you have a look at it for me? And he's a good friend of mine. He'd had a few health issues. So I said, okay. And in all honesty, when people ask you to have a look at products as a researcher, as a nutritionist, it is a bit of a heart sink moment. You go, okay, I'm going to go look at.
You predicted the outcome before they've even finished the sentence.
Yeah. I expected to ring him back in 10 minutes and go, it's rubbish. It's more rubbish. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And so I Googled, went on, and the first thing that hit me was the fact that they were associated with the Vitas labs, which I knew of as a researcher. They're an independent labs that work with everyone, Oxford, all across the board. Vitas are really well known. So I thought, that's really interesting.
That's the kind of the starter kit. That's the testing that you do initially before.
Yeah. That's the dry blood sampling, just to see what your status is.
Yeah.
As a
the starting point before we start our journey for health anyway. So that's such a great indication, by the way, isn't it? Like, we all need the starting point from which direction we're going to go, so we can assess and continue.
Well, that's right. I mean, in my area, in research and high performance sport, we have a really old saying, which is, if you're not assessing, you're guessing. So if you don't measure it, then you're just guessing, aren't you?
Yeah.
So we're driven by measurements.
Yes.
That's what I tell people as a scientist. All I know really is how to measure things.
Yeah.
So when I saw this, I thought, that's really different. And I thought, well, that's really bizarre, because that could work. My first thought was that could work against you, because if you do a test and go, yeah, everything's fine, then you don't sell any products. So I thought, that's really bold, and I was impressed by that. So then I thought, okay, so more fish oil, and then I saw balance oil, and I saw what it was, which was bound to the polyphenol, and that's really important. And
can you tell the audience what the difference is from your research that you found? What's the difference between a fish oil and balance oil?
Well, fish oil is where you take the fish, and it pretty much goes into a big machine. It gets mulched up, turned into a refined oil. And most fish oils will remove the heavy metals, those kind of potentially toxic elements. And you get a type of crude oil. You get an oil, and then they'll flavor that, and you take it. The problem is it oxidates, and it will go off really simply once it's exposed to air, and it's really sensitive to temperature. So when you consume it, your body starts to damage it straight away. So by the time it gets through the small intestine to the large intestine and then out to the system, there's not really anything left. It's been absolutely
useless taking it.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. And that's just not my opinion. There's a whole breadth of, there was a Cochrane study, meta-analysis just last year that said, fish oil definitely doesn't work. And we know that. However, whenever we find the omega-3 in nature, naturally, it's bound to a polyphenol. So if you eat a fresh, wild, line-caught salmon, brilliant, and I mean, there are some debates over the nutrient profile of fish in the modern world, but let's just say you line catch a wild salmon, brilliant. When you consume that, well, then those omegas are going to be bound to the polyphenol, brilliant. Now, to get the equivalent of what you need to be eating that 4 or 5 times a week, if not every day, and heavily, intensively aquacultured fish. So fish, farming fish, has low nutrients, for fact, has low nutrients availability, and also it's really unethical. So you don't get it from there. Hence why we have the fish oil industry that says, great, well, we'll just make loads of it and it's packed with it. But it just doesn't get through. The body can't make use of it, destroys it. So then you get back to balance oil. Balance oil's got the extra virgin olive oil in it, has the high polyphenol count, the phytonutrient count. And here what we have now is a blending, a reattachment of the polyphenol with the omega-3. Now, this is important because the polyphenol itself works in 2 ways. First of all, it acts as a chaperone. So it protects that omega-3 as it starts to make its way through the system. But it also acts as a quite a potent anti-inflammatory. There's not a GP, there's not a doctor in the world that isn't telling their patients, take a teaspoon of virgin olive oil every single day.
Yeah.
So whenever anyone asks me about balance oil, I say, think of it before you think of anything else. This is your way of taking that extra virgin olive oil every single day. It just happens to be a really, really good one with a high phytonutrient content. So that's the first thing about balanced oil. You're doing what every GP in the world agrees you should do. It's anti-inflammatory. But then back to the omega-3, you have the formulation of the DHA and the EPA in there, and they're protected. So they get to the cell and do what it is that they are intended to do by nature, which is to, again, block those pro-inflammatory markers, to work on maintaining that nice equilibrium, the homeostasis within the cell. It keeps the cell nice and malleable, lets the nutrition in, gets the toxins out. We have a cell functioning the way a cell should function. We have our omega-3 index. People should be above 8.1, 8.2% as a total. And within the cell, we like to see people with their omega-3 to 6 ratio, or 6 to 3, sorry, less than 4 to 1, ideally 3 to 1, 2 to 1. Now, the average person in the UK, for instance, is about 17 to 1. And we see scores that come in way higher than that, way out of ratio, way out of balance at a cellular level. And we know, therefore, that their body is dealing with a lot of inflammatory stress. And this is a compromise to your overall health and well-being. So there are multiple factors over this with regards to wanting to control those levels of inflammation. Acute inflammation is important. If you cut your finger, if you fall off a set of ladders, that acute inflammation is what tells the body to engage the immune system and do something about it. It's when it goes beyond that, it becomes negative. And that's really where we need to restore cellular balance and make sure that we have sufficient amounts of the omega-3 available. So we currently have, at last check, we have the largest database in the world on this. Which I think at last check was just shy of 630,000 dry blood sample assessments of omega-3 status. So we can compare directly between people who take nothing, who take fish oil, who take balance oil, and the difference is remarkable.
And how in those thousands of people that have been tested that actually have a good, a good result? So they don't have to. What percentage do you think from that overall?
Tiny percent. I could actually get you the exact figures for another time, but I mean, in real terms, way less than 2% as a total. Most people, and even some people, because there are ranges, obviously, aren't there? There are ranges whereby someone will be out of what we call balance, but they're not as excessive as a 14 to 1 or a 21 to 1. They might be a 5 or 6 or a 7 to 1. So, and these are people who typically eat generally well, exercise quite frequently, but just aren't getting enough on a daily basis. And funnily enough, we actually see that they experience, from a symptomatic point of view, every bit as kind of profound a change as those who are way out. which is interesting, isn't it? Because you think it'd be more subtle when you were closer to it. And some of the athletes that we've worked with, who we've recommended it to, who are actually quite close, once we've got them within that range in the index higher with regards to their response to exercise, less soreness, they've experienced, which you see across the literature, increased adaptation, less muscle deterioration, less soreness. So we see quite profound changes. And the reason being is that we are normalizing the cellular activity. Now, all of the people use language I don't like. They talk about enhancing and boosting and optimizing. And I don't like that language. Normalizing. Your body is a miracle. And we're still figuring it out. We spent a lot of time coming to understand the human body the same way as we have the planet and the universe. But there's so much more for us to find out. And it is a miracle. And normal, when things work the way that they were designed to work, it is incredible. What we have a tendency to do is get in the way of that. And by whatever the means are, and I say this with respect to absolutely everybody, whatever the means are, we have come from the planet in the extent that the earth gives us everything we need. And our technological advancement has created a distance from that. So we no longer live as though we live as a part of the planet. We manufacture and we synthesize far too many things. And I personally believe that what's paid the price of that has been our health, because we've disassociated ourselves from what the planet naturally provides for us. I don't think any of this is a coincidence. When you look at our trajectory, our history, everything was here for us. And when things get complicated, when we put fake things in the way.
Something that I've also noticed that, so when I was introduced to balanced soil, and like a skeptic, I was like, okay, I'll see what happens. And I didn't take it consistently. But for the last 6-7 weeks, I've taken it every single day. And I was suffering from kind of, I would say, fibroids or a cyst or something was going on my gut, which wasn't really, I think it was just cumulative stress. My stomach, I was just checking a couple of days ago, I was like, my stomach has reduced that bloatedness, that the pains and the aches, about 75%. I'm like kind of more or less normal now, because otherwise I was like a football. It was just so huge. And now I can say I have convinced myself, because you have to convince yourself before you start to even talk about it. And I am so happy with the result, because like I feel so much better. And when you feel better, you're able to do better in life. So my friends or family friends were talking about their changes in the life. They're at the age of 40 somethings, and they're like, oh, we're going through menopause and I think we're just body's changing. And I was like, oh, don't talk about that. The way you talk about menopause, it's too early for me. But I feel that even if you're pre-menopausal, that you could take it, and I don't know, it just, like you said, it balances everything. All of your system kind of is in harmony. And that's how it is that you have to be before you start being productive. So I have loved it. I was like looking at myself, I was like, oh, you're looking all right, actually. You're not looking too bad. And I just love the results. And I think when you see it for yourself, that's when you think, okay, it actually works. So is there anything else that you would say that would complement the balanced soil? Is there something else that we can take in to enhance, like you said, for our performance or our health? Would you recommend something else that also we can add on to balanced soil?
I mean, to me, I am a food first nutritionist. So I would encourage people to look at their diet and to go back and be really honest with yourself. All often than not, we do a lot of nutritional assessments with people, and they will, let's say they don't always tell the absolute truth. And we've done studies on this. We've put cameras in people's houses because they've allowed us to.
Oh my gosh.
And we let them run for months, and we asked them to then, after a few weeks of them settling and adjusting to the cameras being there, we'll say to them, right then, tell us how much you ate today and quantify it. And more often than not, they underestimate by 50%. So we know that people are sensitive about this. So be honest with yourself. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in food fear. Picking up on something we said earlier. I'm not saying never eat any processed food. What I'm saying to everybody is keep that to the minimum. Make sure that most of what you eat is derived from ingredients. Spend some time on the preparation of it. It's so important. And it should be a focal point for yourself and an opportunity for your family to get together. So these key behaviors. Outside of that, because good nutrition is difficult to achieve, and also we all lead busy lives, sometimes doing what's optimal from a kind of dietary point of view, it's difficult to achieve. And again, this is why, answering that question, why did I come to Zinzino? Because I knew I could work as a researcher for a business like this and create solutions for people. I want to change people's lives for the better. I don't want to just talk about it. I don't want to just write an article about it. I literally want people to be better, because life is a gift and I want people to enjoy their lives as best as they possibly can. So that's why I'm here. So through that, the balance oil to me is a no-brainer. You take it every day, and you never.
And should everybody take it? Would you suggest that all children, adults, like my mom, she's 7, I can't tell her age, but she's 70 plus. Should she take it? She's got arthritis and high blood pressure and diabetes, and so should she take it? Would you recommend?
I recommend
anything that conflicts with her medicines.
The main thing people would have to consider is potential if they are taking a lot of blood thinning medication. Right. They might want to check with their GP because of the known blood thinning effects of omega-3s. However, lots of my friends and colleagues are GPs. And when I say that to people, I do add to that. When you ask your GP, is it okay for you to take balance oil? Before you ask them, no matter what medication you're on, no matter what your health issue is, say to your GP, do you think I should take virgin olive oil? Do you think it's okay for me to eat that? And see what they say. Say to your GP, do you think it's good to take vitamin D? See what your GP says. And then the last one is say, is it okay for me to eat fresh fish most days of the week? And see what your GP says. Now, if your GP says, yes, olive oil is great, vitamin D is really important, and eat fish most days of the week, then you can take balance oil, because it's all natural product. There is no synthetics. It is olive oil with fish oil and vitamin D. Yeah. So but otherwise, everybody, but do check in those instances just to be certain. But everybody should. On top of that, our drive at Zinzino is to only create all natural products. So we have balance oil plus everything.
Halal, just for my kind of Middle Eastern audience, that it's a halal product, yes?
Yeah, yes, it is, yeah. And we only create now all our focus. In fact, literally as soon as I end this now, I've got to meet the whole team. Our whole focus is all natural. We have what I think are 2 outstanding products that I don't think have an equivalent in the world, which is another reason why I joined Zinzino. One is called Protect Plus. Protect Plus is vitamin C, vitamin D, beta-glucans. So we're looking at a prebiotic. Earlier on, when I said to you, you're not what you eat, you are what you absorb.
Yes.
The gut biome, the gut microbiome is like a tropical rainforest. Your stomach is the center of your universe. I promise you. It's only when it goes wrong you realize how important it is. And there's no use in putting really good quality food in there if that can't absorb it. And a lot of the foods we consume damage that environment. So Protect Plus with those beta-glucans, that vitamin C and D is in there to really help to organize that and restore that environment. And then I think genuinely now, I've only been here a few months, and this is one of the reasons why I joined. We manufacture and provide the single best multivitamin in the world, which is Extend and Extend Plus, which literally, again, the Extend Plus is all naturally derived products. It's a way to say, I know for a fact today.
Isn't that one? Is there something that you take for immunity? Was there something that I saw was just like an immunity booster? Is that the one?
Protect Plus,
Yeah.
I would say, but even anything with a high micronutrient profile is going to support your immune system. So yeah, definitely Extend Plus too, which is for sure Protect Plus. And as a daily, to me, just to make sure you've covered that base, Extend. And it's not a lot, we don't want people rattling. We don't want people just, being supplement.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. You should see my sister, she takes like 20. I was like, this whole spread on it. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I think for me, convenience. I want to take 1-2 things and that's it. I don't want to be bombarded with taking so many. That's a deterrent in itself.
It is. And again, it's a step away from, natural, isn't it? So to me, we're using 21st century food technology to do food better. And actually 2 years ago, I was at a big conference in the States that I knew a lot of food manufacturers were at. And I said, you're all criminal because we have this technology and you are not making lives better. You're just making your profits bigger. And we need a company to come along and take all that tech and do the right thing with it. And that's what Zinzino is about. Before I took the job at Zinzino, it was made explicitly clear to me that they are only interested in excellence, in making the best product available that genuinely change health. And if you weren't interested in doing that, then Zinzino wasn't the place to be.
Yeah.
So, that's the drive. And that comes from the top. So from Orion and Hilda at the top to Doug, the CEO, any meeting you have, that's the question. Will this make people's health better? Will this make the product the best product in the world? If it doesn't tick those 2 boxes, then we wouldn't do it.
Yeah. So where do you see Zinzino in maybe 5 years' time? Can you? What is it that you would like to see at Zinzino?
Our goal is to be the leading voice in individualized nutrition, test-based individualized nutrition, so that you can take your test, you can get a real insight under the hood to what your status is, and then make informed choices about how you can do things better. And sometimes that won't even be related to it. I promise you, I can't tell you what I'm working on at the moment, but we're looking at making it so that some of the information we provide and some of the tests we provide aren't actually tied to any products we're going to develop. It's just to give people really good, clean information and direction with regards to doing their health better. But yeah, so that's where we want to be. We want to be the leading test-based individualized nutrition company in the world. That's where we want to be, because there's a lot of sickness in the world that people need to have better options and more reliable information. And life is a gift. People deserve to live well. Health is the start. The health is the single most important thing. Nothing else, no wealth matters if you don't have the health to enjoy it and to share it amongst the people you love. So that's the forefront of what we do.
Absolutely. Understanding ourselves better so we can be better for everybody else and ourselves. Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to have you on the podcast. Honestly, I think I could talk to you for hours and hours, and it's such a fascinating. I'd love to see some new products for beauty. Actually, I know that you do one. There's a cream that they do. Yeah. But I'd love to see like a sunscreen or something because I think that's something that obviously is a very popular one. So I'd love to see some extra beauty products that you do. But
I'll feed that back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big one. I mean, that is a big one, and one that everybody needs, male, female, any age. We need to protect our skin. So yeah, absolutely. That's my little input for Zinzino. But thank you so much for such an enlightening conversation. And I hope it helps everybody have a better understanding of themselves so they can live better quality lives. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I look forward to meeting you and speaking to you again. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye now.